Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the live stream on February 5th, 2021. I forgot to turn this damn light on 5 times this week. Awesome. Yeah. You guys, when the beat stops in that song, I was like panicking and like reached for my stream deck and like, oh yeah, the beat is just a dropout there. Fooled myself. I thought it was like ending too early. Yeah, but we're right on time, 10 a.m. Pacific. And the topic today, I don't know. But one of the things I think we'll talk about or show off is maybe the production process of one of the What's New in Reaper videos. Like what goes into that and all that kind of stuff. So let me just grab one more thing and then yeah, okay. So what camera angle are we at? Here we go. So let's take the example of the What's New in Reaper 6.20 video that I released, I don't know, late January. These videos start out by taking the full changelog. So all these lines of changes, all this stuff, and I put it into an Evernote document. And then in the case of this video, or this update, I spent probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours off and on condensing the list down into the fewest possible things. Like, what do I find interesting? What do I think is an important change? How do I collect everything so that there's similar topics? We're not jumping from MIDI to audio editing to Media Explorer and stuff like that. Or if it has to, what's the most efficient way of presenting this stuff? So this is what my document usually looks like. I can zoom in a little bit. And it usually goes in a similar order, at least to start with, as the original changelog. So basically my notes, what I'm looking at as I record each stage of the video, it's just like a single line thing. And I try to read it out and have that text on screen as well, because that helps any of the visually impaired fans of the Reaper blog, or anyone that watches my videos. It needs the sound just as much as the demonstration. So so that stuff is what I'm reading, and I don't always improvise it. Usually I'll go through kind of like each part if I haven't used that function before, and I will practice. So I might have a full day of like trying to figure out what things are working correctly or as I expect them to work. And if something's not working the way I think it's going to work, I usually go on my Slack team to find, if anyone else has any experience with it, if they've done more of the pre-release stuff than I have. If, because before it gets to the point where it's released, there could be a month or more of people testing things. And then sometimes just the way that things are worded, it's confusing. And so I try to make sense of that before I hit record. So let's look at the actual project files here as well. So when I record, I'm using Streamlabs OBS, and it goes into the captures folder. I take the file out of there, put it into my video projects folder, and then into a media folder. So the first thing, in this case, there's a few different files here. So update capture was the first one I recorded, and I added on to this with another thing where I think I missed a step or something like that. So this is the file, and then I extract the audio out of it using AV Convert. I showed this earlier this week, but go here, mono left channel only, and that gets me my dialogue as a mono file. And then I take my second stream, which is the output of Reaper. So that creates this file and this file. And so the same thing for this other demonstration. This was, I did this one without a camera because it was like 6 hours later or something. And then there's a couple screenshots. Yes, just mentioning things. So anything, I do the recording, and if I mention something, I try to remember to get some B-roll, a screenshot or something like that, and I put that into the folder. So that all gets imported into a Reaper project. So I've got my capture file, I've got my voice and my capture audio, and these are all pretty much automatically synced up just in my recording software. So I don't really need to fool around with that kind of stuff too much. On the dialogue track, I usually put in a take volume envelope, and that allows me to do things like mute my audio track when Reaper is playing something out. Just, like a manual sidechain gate sort of thing. most of the time I want the Reaper track to be ducked by my voice. But then if I want it the other way, I have to do a manual edit. So that just helps clean things up. Occasionally things get rearranged, so you can see that these get put there. And I think that was probably either I just had like a lot of dead space at the beginning because I couldn't get the intro right, or maybe I did the intro at the end. I don't remember, but I moved some stuff around and then put it into this order. Then notice there's these regions at the top, and basically I'm going through usually at double speed and just finding the spots, all the stuff I want to keep in the video. I don't worry about what I don't want to have in the video, and I think that's an important mental switch. So rather than using ripple edit mode and just finding things I don't want and rippling, I'm just highlighting the parts that I do want to keep, and that's all these regions. So this was a long recording. This was over an hour of recording. And so I have 114 pieces here that I wanted to keep. So, yeah, and this part here was recorded after this part, so I just put that in the middle. The next step is getting everything from those regions into an orderly timeline. And unfortunately, there's this Windows bug that I haven't been able to resolve. I think I talked about it yesterday or something. Actually, I have to send this project to my Mac, run a script, and then bring it back to get everything in order. It works okay. That script works okay on Windows, like half the time or less. It's a little bit random, and it gets frustrating because you know that there's a mistake somewhere in there from the script, and you can't find it. So, okay. So at that point, all up to this point, it actually, what is it? Shift H? Nope. I forget what this keyboard shortcut is. Alt H? Okay. Up until the point where I bring it into the beginning of the session, it's just 3 tracks. And then after I move that over there, I expand and show all the other tracks. So all these tracks are in the template in the same order every time. I might have one extra track if I have a second camera angle that I've captured separately. I might have 2 B-roll tracks, but this is, or I might have an extra vocal track if I'm doing an interview, but typically it's 9 tracks in my projects. So I usually find where my intro is, and then I have these files, kind of, how do I do this without breaking things? So I've got my intro and outro, like, could be here, and I've got this there. So what I do, I have a mouse modifier for enabling ripple editing. So I just drag to make some space. I find my edge. I use my select items under mouse action. So I'm using I on my keyboard, and then I press Y on my keyboard, and that shoves everything over at the snap offset. And that's important because my intro music has a long fade in, and there's a fade in on the intro video. The video itself looks like this. You know what that looks like. I've seen that a million times. And then I've got my text above that, and then my name there. You can't see it. There. So all of that happens. I need to hide this window. And when I get to this point, I usually just have a gap here. So I'll press I and then Y again to bring that over. And then if I have a gap in this section, I usually don't have a screenshot there yet. B-roll doesn't come in until later on. And then I'll close that gap with that action. That action is remove contents of time selection. And yeah, B-roll goes in where I need it. If it's something like a screenshot, I have a preset length for video items or images. Minus 90 is 90 frames or 3 seconds. And so that puts a little, I wanted this to be a little bit longer just to show for the whole length that I was talking about that particular thing. So it needs to go longer, and to make it go longer, actually display past the end of its length, you have to loop the item. So you can do that in item properties. Actually, no, you can't. You need to use the SWS loop section or loop item function. Okay. So then I go through at normal speed and I'm cleaning up the audio. I'm tightening up every edit. It's about 70% there, just importing stuff in order using the region method. But it can be a lot tighter, and a big part of these changelog videos is the titles. So let me change some windows around so you can see this all. Oh, I'm gonna have to hide my camera. All right, so I've got these changelog titles in here, and these are just MIDI items with a solid color fill to make a black background, which hides the camera, and then text overlay. I named these through a custom script that inserts an item of a certain length. It adds the video effects. It names based on the clipboard contents, and then it creates a marker with the name of the clipboard contents. Often I have to change that a little bit. So I'll do one right here. So I'll grab my changelog text. So I'll take render support for second pass render. So I copy that. I go here. I press Control Windows Alt K, and that puts in an item with the effects chain that's all through what's the function? There's a built-in function for loading an effects chain. I just kind of preset these. The text overlay gets the name of the item automatically, and if I want to change that, so like you can see here, this one looks fine because I've already formatted this, but some of these I have to format in a really weird way. So like this one here, it would be too long and it would just go off the edge. So I have to sometimes format things in a strange way. And if I have to make a change, then I use this action. What's the action called? SWS rename takes, and it brings up this window, and I can paste something in differently to rename it. Another weird thing, Windows and Mac difference, this rename takes function doesn't work if you have line breaks. So it was like, we kind of found it by accident, I think, because I figured out this workflow to get the text in there using copy and paste. But it works differently on Mac and PC, so I've got all these other workarounds to make it work on Windows. It was never intended to work with line breaks, but it worked on Mac and it didn't work on Windows. But now it does work on Windows, but you have to use another method of getting something in there. So if I want to change this, let's say all this text, I can't just paste, I can't just rename this item because it only gets the first line. So you need to use another action, which is rename from clipboard. And I don't know that's a that's a XRAME action. Rename selected items. Active take from multi-line clipboard content that should be in XRAME scripts for repack. So that's this action, and it just automatically fills that in. So again, if I need to tweak something, I come in here and then I can tweak the size slightly. And I try to keep it within a certain range. So you can see my lines here for my border. That just kind of helps me with formatting this text stuff, especially. Yeah, so that's the majority of the work is just going through and fine editing things and then putting in all of the text items and the markers. The thing I use markers for is actually getting a start on my YouTube descriptions and all of the timestamps and stuff. So there's another action from XRAME I'll show you here. I think this is a public script, but I run this action called XRAME export markers as YouTube timecode for video description. And then I get this list here. And so it's got the start markers. There was some change recently. I don't know if you've seen that this changed, but there's an extra colon in here. But it used to be, it used to be like exactly what I needed for creating the timestamps. So I just select all these, copy it, put it into the YouTube description, and that at least gets me a head start on organizing the video. So I also paste that into, usually before or between Reaper and YouTube, I put it into my Evernote document and I just clean up the text, reorganize it, change the name a little bit, things like that. So usually the description has a slightly different name as the actual changelog item. This whole process for this video was probably a couple hours. I recorded everything in one day, and I think I published it immediately. So sometimes I get it done in the evening and I save it for the next day. This was kind of a big video, and I just wanted to like get it all done at once. I'll show you my export settings just in case you haven't seen this before. Are we zoomed in? We are zoomed in. So I put in the file name, add in .mp4, so it's not making an MOV. Doesn't really matter, but it's kind of good habit, I guess. These are my settings for YouTube on Windows, 2560 by 1440. That gives you a nice high bit rate, and if you're watching something or my video on a nice monitor or TV, then it looks nice and crisp. 100% for H.264 and 320 for AAC. And that's pretty much it. The render process for this particular video was probably 20 minutes, so a little less than real time, which is pretty good. But yeah, things are simplified a lot compared to what I was doing about 2 years ago, where I recorded the video. I recorded my camera separate from my screen capture, and then I combined them, and then I was having to automate camera angles. So if I wanted full screen, I would have to, have just my video full screen, and then I would have to do a thing to get it to a look like this, or like this, or like this, or like this. And now I do that as I'm recording through OBS actions linked to a Stream Deck. So, so sometimes I have to zoom in on my own face, and let's expand the automation here. So that's what a lot of this stuff is. So I guess you can't really see everything at the same time. This is what the automation looks like. So it's zoom, scale, horizontal position, vertical position, and it's just in various places throughout this. There's a couple of spots where I zoom in on my face a little bit. So let's look at, I'm going to turn off my camera and move this over. So there I've zoomed in, and you kind of lose some resolution, obviously, because you're zooming in on something that was small originally. But yeah, sometimes it's a small quality loss, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but like it's not really worth doing the other way. So yeah, that's pretty much it for how I did this video anyways. Most videos are similar. I mean, the other videos are more difficult because I have to come up with a topic, do research, think of like thumbnail, B-roll, all that kind of stuff, and it doesn't always work out into a good video. So you feel like you wasted the day. But I know that these videos are pretty straightforward. They follow the same sort of workflow and everything, and they always do well. So this video got probably 14,000 views at this point, something like that, which is pretty good. Definitely the most popular series on my channel. Okay, so SWS extension, check out the website probably tomorrow, and there will be an update. Yeah, so there should be an update available tomorrow. I don't know what the version number is, but this should, I actually don't even know what changes are in it. But I have been using the pre-releases for a while, and they, in general, recommend you use the pre-releases. This should probably fix some stuff with the new Mac operating system. It can be difficult to install SWS and stuff like that. All right, now I'm going to read the chat. It's been a while since I've looked at the chat. 30 minutes already since I looked at the chat. So why all armed actions change the position of edit cursor to mouse position? Saw armed actions in Reaper video and Reaper Mania, and there's no such issue. Why do an armed action change the position of the edit cursor to mouse position? I don't know what you mean. I don't do many armed actions. I don't do many armed actions other than one for splitting. Why does the position of the edit cursor to mouse cursor position? I think you would want that, wouldn't you? If you click on an item, even normally, your cursor, trying to do this where you can actually see it. If you click on an item normally, it's going to move the edit cursor. So if you don't want the edit cursor to move, then your armed action needs to be probably something with, like default action is select item and move edit cursor. So you'd have to modify that to not move the edit cursor. So yeah. I just did a tutorial on this too. I always have issues with grouping. When I go back to edit splits, sometimes the grouping misbehaves. Yeah, so that is something I'm not sure about. So kind of the workaround for this broken script on Windows is to use the region playlist. So you do new playlist, add all regions, and then hit edit project, and let's put it here. Append playlist to project. And this is kind of a slow process. I don't even think it worked. Yeah, I don't think that worked at all. Yep, that didn't work at all. Append selected regions. Add edit cursor. Yeah, this is this is also completely broken. That's funny. That doesn't work at all. So hopefully the SWS update fixes that tomorrow. But yeah, I reinstalled the normal version of SWS today and not the pre-release, and that's why this is broken. So anyways, if you run that, grouping is usually lost. So I've got these 3 items grouped, and after I run the region playlist, they'll be ungrouped. Let me open up most recent project that I used that on was what was that project called? Advanced MIDI Note Selector. And so they're all multicolored because I had to run a script to regroup them. And so that script is from Xrame. If you search for group order, group selected items according to their order in the time, order in selection per track. So you just grab a bunch of these that, let's say they're ungrouped, run this, and that groups them in columns. So normally if you grab a bunch of items and hit G to group, they're going to be all linked together, but these need to be grouped in columns. So that script is, yeah, an amazing thing to fix issues. Use Audio Mover's streaming VST to set up audio sessions to a client. Could I run this fine in the monitoring section instead of a bus? Yeah, so it's yeah, monitoring effects chain will be fine with the Audio Mover stuff. Using that, it will always be sending, and you don't need to set up for each project. So I'm doing that for the Restream plugin to get into OBS. So it's going to be the same sort of thing. Can you have an FL style step sequencer drum machine style? I would recommend getting the Loop Cloud drum plugin. It has a pretty good step sequencer. or any sort of like electronic style drum machine thing. Geist has a great step sequencer as well. You could even program in FL Studio and then import the MIDI to Reaper. Just use whatever options are available. There isn't anything specifically in Reaper that's exactly like the FL Studio one, but if you have FL Studio, use it. It works on every platform. So Aria says, I keep all my audio and video on one item, then route the DAW and mic audio to buses, edit one item, and all the elements are all together. The issue with that is that Reaper only gets the first stream of audio out of OBS. So I'd have to go through more steps to convert it into a single item. But yeah, whatever works. If you just need mono, if you are doing a mono feed, I'm doing mono for my mic and stereo for other things, and so I need those all separate. But yeah, mono, pan left and right, and then convert back to mono in Reaper would work. But I always end up needing to mute things or shift things, do J cuts and L cuts and things on occasion. Is there a way to play synths or whatever VSTs from virtual keyboard and then go to the synth window, fiddle knobs without cutting the sound? Yeah, so it's pretty simple one actually. So I'm gonna open up the view menu, virtual MIDI keyboard. Okay, so embiggen it. Right click, send all keyboard input to virtual MIDI keyboard even when other windows active. So that's all you need to do there. Oh, Cephalian's here. Most important changes in the next SWS is proper support of Reaper version 6. Fixes contextual toolbars, CC shapes, and various other things that broke. Were you here when that region playlist thing had broken on me a minute ago? Yeah, that's always kind of, well, if you could add in the function to select all regions or add all regions, while I have you here, I'm just going to put in a feature request. In the region playlist, can you make a shortcut for this add all regions? This could solve my scripting issue if I had a keyboard shortcut for this. If I don't actually need to open the region playlist, and if grouping worked correctly as well, that would be amazing. That would be a real time saver for me. But I don't know. If I can just get that bug fixed on Windows, that would be amazing too. So, Nick, I didn't see a question there before. You just said, excuse giant post, but I didn't see anything else before that. I didn't even get a warning that there was a link. Sorry about that. Yeah. I don't just, if you can do your question again without a link, that's great. Do you have a way to monitor incoming and outgoing OSC messages? Trying to build a custom OSC application with Touch OSC and trouble getting my edited Reaper OSC file to work. I'm not sure. I might have to look something up. I don't know if there is anything for that. Does Recontrol MIDI show OSC in the log if you put on meta messages and sysx? That's my best guess. There might be something else for that. Um, the MIDI learn window as well, if you're in like the action list. I don't know. I'll just take this and hit key map. No. What do I do? Hit add. This should also respond to OSC input. So as long as if you uncheck automatically close window, any OSC input that this is receiving should come in there. But you're probably looking at some sort of third-party app, like the Touch OSC editor should should show you what it's doing. But I don't know. OSC has always kind of gone over my head. Okay, so your question was on Facebook. Okay, so here's the message. Word wrap is not working. It pasted in with it. There we go. Okay, so routing. I have a complete blind spot about understanding routing and what it could give me extra. I understand the basics around tracks, folders, and buses, and can record tracks reasonably well. I also know how to set up sidechaining. I don't use VCAs. Things I've come across, like in the Reaper manual, where they start creating additional channels and outputting things on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and my eyes and brain glazes over. Do I need to understand these things, and what would it give me more? Okay, so in some ways it reduces the number of tracks that you need. And another way to think of it perhaps is like, if you take like a headphone cable, you've got the two conductors that pass two different signals. Imagine channels 3 and 4 are additional conductors on that cable. So instead of a 2-wire cable, it's got 4 wires plus the ground. And each one can be independent. In terms of Reaper, I showed an example the other day, maybe yesterday, where I had I set up a sidechain setup, and then I EQ'd the signal before it hit the sidechain. So if I had kick and snare triggering compression on a pad, then I could put an EQ on the kick and snare combined and take out all the lows, for example, or boost some frequency and make the compression in the sidechain more, more sensitive to those frequencies. I also put in a second compressor, and just by changing the pin numbers on the plugin, I could choose where to process things. Is a send a wire? Kind of. It's kind of like a split in the wire. So if you're not used to like an analog mixer, if you just imagine a wire, you're attaching another wire to that with a volume control for sending or choosing how much of signal goes there, how much voltage goes there. So yeah, it's just channels 3 and 4 are typically used for like your sidechain input. So you're using the voltage from some other signal or from some other source to modify the processing on the original source. So that's how I think of it. Usually channels 3 and 4 aren't heard. They're just a signal for processing, like do compression when it exceeds the threshold on this part. Yeah, ascend could be considered a wire, like splitting the signal, and pre and post fader is like where in the signal chain are you attaching that wire. Is there a way to get extra screen sets? Edited screensets.ini, increased the number, but it didn't work. I don't think I've ever gone above 5. That's a good question. And screen sets are built into Reaper, so editing the number in reaper.ini would probably fix it, but maybe not. It might actually be hard-coded. If I have a track and channels 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is the same signal going out of each? No. There's most likely there's only a signal on 1 and 2. But you can tap off of channels 1 and 2 and send that to 3 and 4. So let me show you that here. So when I create a send, so when I create a send like this, I've got input channels and output channels. So audio 1 and 2 comes from the left and right of this sound file. And I can go to new channels on receiving track. And then if we were routing 3 and 4 back to the master, then we could hear this file when on this track. If we just send it on 1 and 2, we're getting both signals at the same time. But yeah, you can add additional channels. You can also add more channels without creating sends. So I can make this a 12-channel track. But because there's only audio on the first 2 tracks and there's only outputs on the first 2 tracks, you're not going to hear anything additionally. Yeah. So there's always a minimum of 2 tracks, and there are, up to 64 channels, separate left and right, separate signals, but they could be the same signal or like split off and merged and all that kind of stuff. Is it better to bus your instruments to one track and process them like drums, or is it fine to do the same? Do them grouped in one folder? I feel like folders work better. I think technically they should be exactly the same. I find folders work best for me. The downside of folders is they have to be immediately to the left of your tracks. So and that can, like, they have to be in a specific order in the arrange view or the mixer. Buses could be anywhere. I find with buses, anytime I'm manually routing things, once I get to the mix or like mastering or something, if I export that, there's almost always one track that I hear it because it's going direct to the master, but it doesn't end up going through things, the routing that I thought, just because I added another track and I forgot to manually assign its output. So there's things like that that I find are a lot easier if you just use folders and, all your routing is parallel and everything's going through the master, rather than having... I see some people do like a separate instrument and vocal track or buses without folders. And yeah, this just doesn't work for me. It's kind of an old way of working. We've got about 15 more minutes. Happy to do more Q&A if you want. Mike sent me a screenshot from a video. Thanks for that, Mike. And you could freeze frame on any one of my videos, and I'm blinking, and everyone are looking drunk or tired, or I don't know. I am usually tired, not drunk. Are you able to give a 60-second speech on the use of VCAs in Reaper? So, let me think. A VCA is similar to a bus, but it's for grouping. And yeah, if you don't understand grouping already in Reaper, then VCAs aren't going to make much sense. But think of them as a way to control multiple tracks. It's a kind of a macro control for volume and pan. So you assign one VCA lead, it's called now, to multiple VCA follow tracks. So those could be, you could have a drum VCA, which is your master kind of volume attenuator for your drum tracks. So you've got your kick and snare and things like that set to VCA follow. And when you make an adjustment on the VCA lead track, then it is essentially the same as turning down all the faders on the individual tracks, which also affects their send levels. And the big reason to use VCAs instead of folders is if you turn the folder track all the way down, you don't get any drums in that folder coming out of the folder, but your reverb sends will still be at the original volume. Using a VCA, you lose the drum signal and you lose the send signal. The downside is that if you are adjusting the VCA and you want to do bus processing, that's going to affect the threshold of any compressors, distortions and things like that on the bus. So you kind of need to choose where you're adjusting things, and it's kind of annoying. There's no ideal way. If there was a VCA folder track, that would be ideal, but that doesn't work currently. So hopefully that explains it. It's VCA stands for voltage controlled amplifier. It's just a controller. No audio is actually passing through it. It's just sending a voltage to modify the gain staging of the faders on different tracks. It's kind of an old concept. It's really a DCA, digitally controlled amplifier. But yeah, this actual signal isn't going through a VCA, unlike a folder or a bus where the signal is actually going through. How old is my beanie? Less than a year. Can I loop different tracks with different lengths? No, I don't think so. Again, something like Geist is good for that. Yeah, you can loop items with different lengths. But yeah, you can't have multiple time selections with different loops all playing simultaneously. Do you have trouble when looping video segments for Foley? I find I have to loop around once for the picture, or the picture starts to lag. I don't do very much Foley or looping a video. I think I've experienced that though, if I'm like trying to loop something and tweak video effects. It's usually things like, what is it? Alt V. I'll show you my video performance settings. So, multiprocessing turned off, decoder prefetch disabled, video cache 1 second, and all media and video effects are not cached. For whatever reason, this seems to help a lot. There's also aggressively update during arrange, edits, and scrolls. I think all this stuff got improved in the last update, but I didn't really notice a difference. And the other issue was, is because you have your video and audio attached. That's why you're probably getting a lag. So I noticed that if I have my video or my audio coming out of my video track, there's always some sort of lag. So you see in my video edits, there's no audio on the video track because what is my Shift G? If I go into source properties, I've toggled ignore audio. Didn't catch the bug. Okay. Checked adding add all regions to current playlist action is possible. Almost finished it. Awesome. That's good to know. The bug, when I demoed it earlier today, was I think it's just because I have the I went back to the, what do you call it, 2.1 update. Roberto, thanks for joining as a channel member. Very cool. I don't know. It was only pasting the automation. It wasn't pasting any of the items. And also, please, once you process the region playlist, like if I had something like this project where there's multiple items and these items are grouped in columns, after you run the region playlist and append to the project or paste at the cursor, they end up getting ungrouped. So none of these would be grouped. They'd all be the default color. And I'm using an Xrame script to regroup them in columns. So yeah, if grouped, keep in group would be awesome. What's the best way to slow down a lot wave or sound file without getting bad quality for ambient music purposes? So the best way, you have to experiment with the different algorithms in Reaper. So are we zoomed in? No, we're zoomed in. So there's the different pitch shift algorithms. I usually keep it on the latest Elastic Pro, but they all sound a little bit different. And there's things like preserve formants, highest and lowest pitches, things like that. That all makes a difference. I did a video on extreme time stretching, and I didn't really come to a conclusion that was any different than like use the Pro version. And if you want to keep low frequencies, then use the low optimized. And if you want to keep high frequencies, use the high optimized, all the stuff that I just said. But for more extreme stuff, there's pulse stretch, and there's a extension for that. I didn't install that, did I? No, there is a pulse stretch VST made by a Reaper user, Xenokios, and I think that's the right person. And that can do really extreme time stretching, like stretch something out to a year long. And it just kind of does this weird morphing, smoothing kind of effect that I can't really even explain. Double video window is a must for Reaper. Yeah, that's one of my biggest feature requests. Having a second window so that you can have a reference in the control room and a full screen video for the client. That'd be awesome. Advice on how to compare the volume of the number to the reference numbers. Is there a decibel scale? Is there a limiter? I know there's a limiter, but can compare with it. Okay, so if you have a reference track, let's actually take this, where I've got two different files here. It takes something like the Yulin loudness meter. How do I fit this on the screen? Okay. All right, so this, when you're comparing different sound sources, you need to use a loudness meter. Can't always go by decibels, because decibels don't take into consideration human hearing. Okay, I got like 1 more minute before we have to go. And so if I play this, no, that's not the loudest spot. You want to go with the loudest spot, and all right, so this is like minus 17 LUFS short term, minus 16 integrated. You're just going to play like a few seconds of the loudest part of the track. And you go to your second track. No, not there. So integrated is minus 17.3, which means that they're like 0.6 apart in decibels. You can use decibels to change the difference in LUFS. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So decibels show you the difference between LUFS. Yeah. Minus 17 is quieter than minus 16. So with this one, I just need to increase the volume slightly. Let's do 0.6. Probably won't find the exact same spot. Minus 16, we'll find... No. Oh, I messed this demo up because I had this one turned down by dB. So, but I think if you're comparing different sounds, you need to get them to a common place in volume. Obviously, turning down the track or the item is going to change the peak level, but if you're in the production process, you can adjust things, setting your limiter different, setting your effects different. Yeah, pretty much. But you can't always go by track meters because they don't take into account human hearing, and LUFS is the best way currently to do that. And there's also no ideal number for an integrated loudness of X genre. You just find the sweet spot for that particular song. And if you're comparing to something else, you need to turn that one down to match yours, and then you can compare frequency matching and things like that. All right. Bronx asks, do you work for Reaper? Nope, I work for you guys. You guys pay me by watching videos, being patrons, channel members, buying my courses, things like that. But I'm completely separate from Reaper. All right. I am out of time. I have a call coming up. I need to have my lunch before then. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks to my awesome patrons and channel members. This is the updated list as of yesterday. So thank you guys. If you're on the list, you are the best. But thanks everyone for watching, joining the live stream. This has been a lot of fun this week, and I don't know what we're doing next week, but yeah, it's been fun. No idea if I'm going to cut down these like 6 hours of streams into shorter segments or, recaps or something like that, because that's like 14 hours of work. I don't know if I'm going to do that, but yeah, if I can't think of anything, you will find recaps of the last week on the YouTube channel. Thanks again. I'll see you guys next week. I'll probably do a video for the SWS stuff once there's a changelog that I can read through. Bye.